Welcome back to Conversations. And as promised, Ken Levin is with us. He is a decorated war veteran and author of this fabulous big book, Crazy Razor. This is a novel of the Vietnam War, but my sense is that there's a whole lot of stuff in this book that you experienced. Would that be right, Ken? Truth.
That's the most common question I've received by anybody who's read the book.
Yeah.
I don't think you can write a good book or any good book without having some base in fact, research, and maybe even experiences that you've imagined. So that book, it's fiction. A whole lot of it is based on real things, but there are things which are just pure imagination. It's I've tried to be historically accurate in the book, and I've tried to be technically accurate in the book.
Operative word, tried.
Yeah.
Tried. Yeah, well, I think most writers try.
Well, you served in the Vietnam War.
Yes.
Tell us about that experience. What was your position and
Well,
you were a naval officer.
I was a naval officer. You got about 7 hours for the show.
Absolutely.
We've got to teach you to do this in 30 seconds.
Okay. Well, I was a naval officer, operating at sea in the Atlantic, and I was offered an opportunity to go to Vietnam, and it was one of those plum jobs, good for the career, that kind of thing. And it was also, Vietnam had not received the war in Vietnam had not been stigmatized yet. And I wanted to make a career in the Navy. It was good for me, so I said, yeah, sign me up. So the Navy sent me for training, language training, learn how to speak Vietnamese, and I became an advisor to the South Vietnamese Navy in Vietnam. So I was certainly living in a third culture, in a third world Navy. It was just me and maybe an assistant or two, an American assistant or two. And I watched and consuled the South Vietnamese Navy. It's sort of goofy when you think about it. Here's a country that's been in war all their times. These Navy officers I was consuling and talking to and advising, they've been fighting a war since they've been adults. And they were fighting a war on wooden boats and old junky World War II era river assault craft. And I'm coming from a Navy of high technology, jet airplanes, radars, communication systems. At night we slept in clean white sheets and ate blueberry pancakes in the morning. And I'm advising these guys on how to fight a war. That's
How many tours did you serve over there?
I just had one. Most
Just
Navy
one?
guys got one.
And how long was that tour?
That was 12 months.
12 months. Long enough, right?
Yeah. That was, it was long enough. Yeah.
What was the inspiration to the book? I want to get to what really motivated you after all these years post-Vietnam to write a book?
There's a couple things in there. One, I think the thing that really kicked me into writing a book like this was there's a book called The Cruel Sea that Nicholas Montserrat wrote. Nicholas Montserrat was a naval officer in the Royal Navy in World War II. And although you were not supposed to do so, he kept a diary. And he, in the late 40s, he wrote and then published in the early 50s a book called The Cruel Sea. I read this book, I guess about the mid-70s or so. And it was, to me, the most accurate description I ever read of going to sea and sort of what you felt like when the bullets are flying and all this other kind of
So it touched a bit of a nerve with you?
What touched the nerve was, one, it was so accurate. Later, when I was at graduate school, they had built a wing onto the library at the graduate school, and some donor left them his library, his private library. And when it opened, I was just walking through, and here were 3 skinny books written by Nicholas Montserrat. And I pulled them out and looked at them, and they were essentially his diaries. And there was The Cruel Sea in his diaries. And I thought, I can do this. I can take my experience. Now, I didn't keep a diary, but I can take my experience and I can write my book. I can write The Cruel Sea. And I wanted to do that. And the more I thought about it, the more I wanted to, but I was busy. I had a career going, soon had a family. I was
grandkids.
Not yet. Not yet. Not in these days. And then the Navy retired me, the disability retirement, and I had the opportunity to write the book. Now I was 38 years old, 39 years old, and who gets an opportunity to do that? I didn't have to really work. I could sit at home and do that. Well, I didn't realize what it was to sit home with three things I didn't have around me before. One was a refrigerator. When you're at home alone, you go down and raid the refrigerator all the time.
Yeah,
so
we
that
know
was
that
keeping
well,
me
don't we?
busy.
Oh,
yeah.
I tell you.
And the second one, I had two little kids. So when I tried to write, I had one on this lap, one on this lap, and I'm sitting around writing.
Right, and they're
with them.
taking your focus.
And I said, this isn't going to work. I tried. I got a couple of book reports out just to try to see if I could write, and I guess I could.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, I'm going to push this off, and I will do other things, and then I'll just make sure I can do it. So I sort of set up my life that I'll work for 5 years, retire, write the book. Well, the 5 years gone on and farther. Kids going to college, expenses, house payments, everything else. And finally, in it was about 2008, I looked back at myself. I said, you've been through a lot. Who knows how much time you got left? Let's write that book. So I told the guys at work, I'm retiring. You better find a replacement. And I'm going to write the book.
And is this are you going to do another one? This is a huge undertaking. You don't see books that thick these days.
Yeah, we're not talking about a thin
No, it's not a
little,
pamphlet.
Well,
not the Cliff
that
Notes,
goes
that's for
against
sure.
all guidance I was ever given on writing a book, I might add.
Your publisher going, no, you can't do
No,
one.
well, it's about 200 pages longer, and
Yeah.
I had
we're
a lot of
looking at-
advice which I completely ignored.
We're looking at 570 some odd pages in total. That's, as your wife mentioned earlier before we started here, it was about a 2.5-year pregnancy, she called it.
Well, it was more like a 45-year pregnancy because the thing gestated for a long time. And when I started it, I figured, okay, I'm going to do what Nicholas Montserrat did. I'm going to write about me.
Yeah, exactly. Were you thinking when you were serving in Vietnam, were you thinking this will be a story one day? No, not even there.
No, I was just going to get
You
my
were
ass
just there
out of
doing
there.
your
I'm going to get
okay.
myself. Did I use the wrong word?
It's all right. We all have
You were
one.
just trying to stay alive and keep your neck above water.
but and all parts connected to it. I had not thought of writing the book.
Yeah.
I had other things. I said, well, this is good for my career. This is, let's get out of here, do whatever I'm going to do.
So, but you had to go back though to Vietnam. You brought some pictures along. We won't make you go through them because I think it's more important that you tell us how this kind of came to. But we'll have them putting up some pictures. But you went back to Vietnam and met with some folks, and
I went back to Vietnam. I finished the book. Well, when I wanted to be as technically and historically accurate as I could be on this book, even though it's fiction, even though it's a novel.
Yeah.
And I found tremendous amounts of information about the South Vietnamese government. Stanley Carno's book is a wonderful book. And of course, I had my own experience, so I was pretty good about that part of it. But I also wanted to write about what happened in the North. And the book is a interlacing of chapters, one by the South, or one about the American in the South, the other one's about a North Vietnamese person, and the two chapters interlace and they sort of
Well, it sounded like you wanted to get both ends of the story. I mean, you had
so
the
I want
stories
to
from
be
the
accurate
Allies.
on the what happened in the North. Now, there's not a lot of information available on that, so I finally got to the point where I said, if I want to write this book, I'm going to have to just use my imagination and figure out, okay, what would a normal person do in that kind of situation given their environment? And that's what I did. I just wrote it. And it got to the point where the book was just about ready to, I think, to go off to the publisher, but I wanted to verify that my musings about what happened in the North and the people in the North.
So you went on a bit of a fact-finding mission, and
So
I think we
I
have
went-
some pictures from that as well.
So I went back to Vietnam in February, this last February, and I didn't go the tourist route, and I wanted to talk to North Vietnamese veterans to get the information that I could not get. And I wound up talking to 9 of them, and that's a whole nother story, just trying to identify these guys and get their confidence where they will tell you. And much to my surprise, I was pretty accurate in what I guessed about. I didn't get their food right. I didn't get their shoes right. But I got the big things right, and I was able to make, you know, some fairly minor changes, and then the book went off.
Well, let's do a little business here. This is Ken Levin, and he's written this great book, Crazy Razor. If it's a novel, but you're going to get the real historical accuracy of what went on during the Vietnam War. He was there, and he went back, and he verified his stuff. Thank you for being on the show. Let's give people information. Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com. You're on Kindle. You're on everything. So,
Look, yeah.
Yes, just don't Facebook this man. We are not doing Facebook, right? But
there is a Facebook a page or whatever you call it for that book.
But yes, but if you get this book, you can get it by Christmas. Crazy Razor. Ken, great to have you on the show. Thank you for serving our country.
Thanks for sharing your stories.
Yeah, and thanks for sharing your story.
You.
Don't go away. Sean and I'll be right back with plenty more conversations.